Hello! So, we're talking about a very interesting topic today, and we're talking about moving beyond technique. And perhaps I should present myself first a little bit. I wrote Pearls of Juggling 5 years ago. It took me quite a long time to put this book together and to really take out all the unnecessary pieces in it, like a sculpture chiseling away. And and this topic about moving beyond technique was something that people tell me at the beginning. I would be there busy training away. Oh, but he's very technical, or and this really created some. I didn't feel so good about this, because I didn't really know what they meant, what the people meant. I just felt it like a criticism on my part. He's just technical, and so in the last 10 years, I've been, the last 10 years, I don't know what I'm saying now, the last 20 years, I've been thinking about this, what does it mean? He's too technical. And I think if we take a parallel to let's say musicians, you can go to a concert, and there can be someone that plays exceptionally well, but it just doesn't come across to and somebody else which plays exceptionally well, and it touches you, and you feel involved somehow in what they're doing. And this is more the point, is what I'm interested in, how to really transform the technique, which is the mechanics of throwing and catching, and transforming this into basically art in the end. An art, something which you can inspire other people and touch their lives. And so I've got a whole mind map here about this topic, about technique and going beyond it. So perhaps we'll just go through a few of these things. So basically, let's say if we are just technical, then we are a technician, and a technician just knows how to do things, and even a robot could do these things. We could argue about this. No, a robot could do these things. So let's say the first step about going beyond our technique is to bring in our humanity into our work, like who we are, so giving the juggler as much importance as the juggling, and I always say this, through the act of the juggler and the juggled through the act of juggling. This in Eastern philosophies, we often see this separation, between the object, the observer, and the act of observing. And the idea is to fuse all of these together. So we become, well, it sounds a bit funny, we become one thing. So the juggler and the juggled through juggling. So this isn't actually a tiny thing. This is quite a big concept. What it means is that I can feel at ease doing my juggling, not feeling like I'm a big show off, or that I have to. What one of the things is, I'm zapping around a little bit here. So what happens is that quite often, this was definitely my case. I was quite a timid. I still am quite a timid, shy person. And for me, juggling really, it was just an incredible tool for me to learn, and I definitely hid behind my technique often, and that's fine, but it's people are more interested in our humanity in the end. So it's taking this step towards really owning our technique. So 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 let's talk a little bit more about different things, and then perhaps how to get there to this what we're talking about. So we can ask ourselves a question, and this is what I've worked on a lot about. This is what game is it that we're playing? So is it fun, the game that I'm playing? You know, it's like perhaps learning all sorts of different variations of certain tricks is stimulating to me. But is it really fun? this is the this is the this is what this is a good question, I think, you know, because sometimes we get a little bit blocked and stuck in our idea of what juggling means to me and what it is for me, and perhaps I'm actually more interested in doing something else, but I don't do it because I've defined myself as that kind of juggler. Um, so anyway, so let's go like the simple way to start with. Simple way. We have our technique, and we want to make our technique sublime. Let's say like this. We want to become a real artist of it, and I was recommended this book here, Free Play, by a friend of mine, Ukta, met in India. He came to one of the workshops I held there, and in this book, there is this story of a flute player who when he plays in front of lots of people, they're so touched by his music that they all applaud. And there's one man, in the old man in the back of the room, and he says, like a god. No, he plays like a god. And and there's a guy, if I remember correctly, there's a guy in this story. He's very inspired by how this man plays, and he wants him to teach him. So he goes to this teacher, he looks for this teacher, and he says, "I want you to teach him." And this teacher all the time would say to him, "It's lacking something." So this guy would go back, and he would train and go back, and this whole story really goes on for a really long time, and this student becomes so upset that he can't actually find this thing that is lacking, that he quits it altogether, and then yeah, he just gives up. He gives up basically, and then years later, he plays the flute again. He's asked to play again, and when he plays the flute this time, he has the same response. You know, because not he's not playing the flute anymore. He's just giving it all to the music. So this perhaps sounds like a bit of a contradiction, what I'm saying here, you know. Giving, on one side, I'm giving myself fully up to the art, and the other side, I have to fully show up in my art. Now, this is all a bit wordy, what I'm saying here. I'll try and make it as comprehensible as possible. You might have to go back and look at something again, what I'm saying, or ask questions, you know, always ask questions, or write to me, or comment on this video, and I'll try and simplify some things. But so another way of saying going beyond technique, actually I'm gonna stick with, let's say I'm passionate about training, you know, I love juggling, and perhaps I'm not so interested in performing. But you know, as jugglers, we always get a bit of pressure. You know, people find out with jugglers and say, "Oh, go on, do some juggling, go and perform here and there," and and this it might work out really well. You know, we might not know how to go about this, but what I like to think is that in training, we can train in a way that we are performing to ourselves. You know, it's, if I'm training, there's different ways of training. You know, I could train that there's a whole list the tricks I do. I do this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. I can leave some space to have some variations in this, and but if I feel that it's something that I have to do, then it makes it stale. You see, and then it definitely becomes much more mechanical. So if I'm training with music that I love, and I'm really interested in learning this trick and this variation that I'm working on, and perhaps sequences already bring us out of let's say technical trick thinking, because we start to create, you see, and it's this creation factor that makes that helps us to bring us deeper into what we're doing. I always try and say follow whatever is fun for you, you know. So this isn't like what you. I try and avoid going into like this is good and this is bad, you know. It's like what do you want? What do you want from your juggling? Basically, what do you want from your juggling? You know, I like to juggle because it feels good to me. You know, it's a way of just completely letting go of my head and just playing. And so this is what I tend to do now when I train and when I juggle, just more or less improvise. You know, so going a bit left and right and up and down all over the place here. So this is also another aspect, let's say, of going beyond the technique. When I learn to drive a car, you know, at the start, I'm very worried about what pedal to push, what the brake, and I've got the steering wheel, got all the mirrors to look into, and after a while, this gets deeper into the brain, and you could say I completely forget about it. So this is one aspect of going beyond the technique, is when I completely forget about it, and what happens though? It's not just jugglers, artists, or whatever. When we actually learn something properly, we lose interest in it. It's because it's this learning new tricks is just so stimulating for the brain, and I think we should continually learn new tricks. But it's also good to play around with the things that we know, you know, and then we actually find out that we don't know that trick so well, you know. It's like we're very quickly label something as, oh yeah, do that, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that. And if we really go and look at it, we perhaps can't do it, you know. And there's this side of things that we overestimate ourselves very easily, you know? And this happens often, let's say in amateur shows, but also semi-professional shows, where I don't really know what I can do in front of an audience, so I get lots of drops, you know, because I'm passionate about what I'm doing right now, and I want to share this passion with people, but you can't. It doesn't really work, this thing to transcend technique into what I have to say. So one incredible tool I propose often is to because there's a disconnect between how I let's say there's a disconnect between me and my emotions, basically, in all of us. So one really cool thing I find, and this is beautiful, is that when I train, I try and train how I feel in that moment. It's like I'm not trying to lie to myself. If I'm feeling a bit lazy, perhaps I do lazier stuff to start with, you know. And I find that as the interest comes, I get more energy, and then I'm really into it. But let's say someone pissed me off before my training session, or I'm really worried about something. You know, there's one way that I shut off all of that and just train, and there's another way where I start to play with this a bit more, you know, and I bring this a bit more into my training. And this is an invitation to try this sometimes, because we can transform the emotion and the feeling, and we start to get to know it a lot more, and then we can bring this to we bring this work, this like inner work, as if you want to say, we bring this on stage to it with us, or we bring it into our training, and it's just there all the time. But we tend to shut it off and ignore it sometimes, you know. And I've seen often some people are really relieved when they realise that they can train in this way, because otherwise they force themselves a bit too much, you know. And when we force ourselves, the consequences aren't really. We can push our limits a little bit, but when we're really we talk to ourselves in a rather harsh way, it's not so good, you know. We can be a bit softer with ourselves. I hope you're following me here, because it's a bit complicated, all this, in the end. But it's because it's like going beyond technique. I wouldn't say that there's a recipe to it. You see, this is the thing. It's a process we're entering into, no? And so we're going from technique to something which feels much more free. This is what we're interested in. Okay, so um, so when, like, basically, the more I'm connected to myself, to my emotions, to my inner world, my tastes, and that, the more, if I'm interested in performing, the more I can connect to those of the audience as well. You know, I get a little bit out of this anxious thing. You know, we as jugglers, I think many of us have developed a really high passionate self-discipline, which means that we can practice every day. There's not someone really telling us to do it. We're driven by this passion. When we lose this passion, then we don't want to lose this passion. This is the thing. Transform into something else, perhaps, but look after the passion side of things. Look after your interest, and then we don't have these big drop-offs. You know, it's we juggle ultimately because it feels good. Um, Hang on a second, I'm losing the point here. One moment. So let's go on to this point here a second. So let's have a view of going deeper into our technique. So there's the technique should be solid. Okay, before we can go beyond it, it needs to be solid. Technique is infinite. There's always other tricks to do. Okay, but you make the technique solid. Then we try and in Tai Chi we have one part of the body moves, the whole of the body moves. So I don't just ever do this just my finger. You know, there's always the whole body moving at the same time. You know, and this might sound really strange, but with juggling as well, we can feel this in the body, the movement, and connect the juggling to the movement. So we can start to make bigger movements, perhaps, and then reduce it, make it smaller. But it's connected to the body. It's not just arms and shoulders. You know, there's lots of jugglers that are up like this. It's like we need to be working from our belly, from really lifting the props and working this way. And one thing we never really think about is connecting juggling to the body. Um, what happens to the balls mainly and the props? They all go up, right? So if I go up with the props, my legs get tense and everything gets a bit stiff, you see. and I have to drop down. My weight needs to drop down in my body, and I have to feel my legs really almost going into the floor. You know, there's this groundedness. So I'm grounded, and then juggling becomes much lighter and much more precise. You know, it's this activating our center in the middle here, and I really see this. Some people do this spontaneously. You know, if I loosen up this area and I'm really working from here, then I'm much quicker with everything. You know, this center definitely needs to be worked on. We definitely need to work on this to become more like an animal, more like a cat. You know, more watery. Um, okay, this is rather a particular point here. This is a rather special point here. So to go beyond technique, um, I can make I could even make a homage to juggling. So I could um, dedicate my what I'm doing now to something that I love, someone I love, or or perhaps I could be inspired by some art or even some poetry. Even some um, let's say um, even some Zen poetry. Something like a little bit absurd where we have to it stops this cortical part of our brain. So being technical really is just being really here. And not really being in the body. So we really need to develop this being in the body, which is ultimately then what people call stage presence. And at the school I went to in Switzerland, I asked the teachers once. I said, stage presence. What is stage presence? It's something that jugglers are really bothered about. It's like, oh, I have to have stage presence. And the answer they gave me there was, you have to dive into your work. You have to dive into the craftsmanship. So this idea of craftsmanship is this is core to this work on going beyond technique. It's like, what are the crafts I need? It's not like I have to put in something that I can't do. It's training. It's creating the small sequences. It's creating the longer sequences. It's knowing what I can do. It's it, it's all of this. So the stage presence is my stage presence increases with the more I can actually more I'm in contact with my body. This is a strange thing because in our culture we don't talk about we don't really talk so much about awareness in our body. I mean, we have to feel our toes. Be like be there. We're what happens is we're really just all in our heads. And juggling feels good because it does start to warm up the body. It starts to warm up the body, and so when I started juggling, I wanted to learn how to dance with juggling, and I was thinking, well, what moves to do, and I was very concerned about this, like how to move and juggle, um, and I'll tell you now. This is this is what my conclusion is. Okay, it's I could do any sequence whatsoever. Okay, and I repeat it and repeat it and repeat it tens of times until I know what I'm doing, until I can forget about sequence, until I'm worried about the sequence. And this is with juggling as well. Juggling and body movements together makes it sometimes easier, sometimes more difficult. But while I'm worried about the sequence, I'm definitely not able to really be with the sequence. But when I know it and I really know it, and I don't just repeat the sequence over and over again. I find new ways to think about the sequence. It's and here again, I take a lot of things from Tai Chi training. In Tai Chi, they don't just repeat the form again and again and again and again. There's different ways. You could do the sequence thinking about one leg and connecting it to your center. You can do a sequence think about one arm and connect it to your center. You can do a sequence thinking about up and down and connecting to your spine and the sequence. You can do the sequence when you move forwards, you're thinking about backwards. You can do the sequence imagining that you're in a whole sphere. And this whole idea of being in a sphere is also paramount to this moving beyond, let's say, juggling technique. I'm almost getting a bit like bored of saying this juggling technique thing. But so if I'm moving in a sphere, then someone said to me once that our and this is connecting what I was saying earlier, that our stage presence becomes bigger and bigger the more I'm actually also aware of the back side of my body, because our back, not like the whole of the back and the backs of the legs, it's a part of our body we don't even realize we have. We almost think we are pieces of paper. We have this idea that we are thin like paper, that we don't have 3 dimensions to ourselves. When we really open up to this idea of having 3 dimensions, then being aware of our back, we are aware of already 50% more of our body. No, more probably. So let me see a second. Yeah, definitely something about being fully alive. Oh, so okay, let's go about this little topic here a second. So how, I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but how to connect to my props with juggling, how to connect to them. So, and this I asked my yoga master about this once. And, yoga is a big thing about relaxation. You want to be do everything relaxed. So you see my shoulders, they're pretty relaxed. They're not like this, they're down. Hand really doesn't mean being soft, okay? Being relaxed doesn't mean being soft like a cat, being a cat. Anyway, so the first thing is being relaxed. Yeah, juggling in a relaxed way. And this means when I'm relaxed, the muscle chains, they connect better, you see. When I'm working with really force, I'm using just the big muscles, the muscles in the shoulder, biceps, perhaps, I don't know. I'm using the big muscles, and all the smaller muscles, they get they just bypassed. So the more relaxed I am, the more I connect with all of the different muscles. They all work together. You see. This is a huge theme here, like as if it was a game. Okay, I connect my juggling as if it was a game. If I pretend it was a game, if it becomes a game for me, yeah. So small children, animals, they're cool. They've got lots to say, lots to say. Their bodies express a lot if you look at how how they're into stuff, how they play, how they move, and I say this: if it's not fun what you're doing juggling, change it. Sometimes it takes a while to modify our training schedule. Like perhaps something new, we insert it, and for a few days it doesn't feel good, but then we get into it. We start opening the possibilities to try out new stuff, and we get this enthusiasm comes back to us. Yeah. Another way, this is more also of a mental help, is imagining that we're moving in a fluid. If we have this idea we're moving in a fluid, then something changes. Try it out. Try it out. Don't want to convince you of anything. Try it all out. And the last thing my master told me which is very interesting. Abandon any result. So, I mean, this is very connected to a play mindset as well. So I'm not training to get this result. See, I'm training. I am. You know, this is a paradox. This thing here. You know, I'm training to get that result, but almost pretend that that I'm not. You see, like so it's getting more pleasure in the small steps. This is classic juggling teaching. You know, breaking up something bigger into smaller steps, and we do forget this often. Even as long-term jugglers, we forget to break up bigger tricks into smaller pieces. You know? So anyway, this abandoning the result, you know, it's like um, it's human. This stuff, you know, it's human. It's like perhaps yesterday I trained and something was working really well, you know, and today I want this to work really well and it's not. And what happens is then I get a bit frustrated, I get a bit tense, and it's not going to work. It's going to work even less, you know. So something to think about. Something to think about, and I'll definitely go a bit more into detail into this abandoning result. Ah, okay. So we're going a little bit more deeper into some stuff now. Okay, so it's a lot. You know, there's a lot of let's take a deep breath a second. Anyway, shake the body a little bit. Okay. So this is a lot of stuff that I'm saying to you now. You know, it's anyway. So how to okay, this is what I'm saying here. This is comes from my yoga practice, from the Tai Chi, also from more modern psychosomatic um, thoughts. You know that the tensions that our mind basically creates tensions in our body. You see, and the tensions in our body, they are not just muscle memory, as in like I developed certain muscles to be able to do, let's say, 5 club back crosses. No, I can't do this because I don't have the muscles. No, that's not. But it's not just this way of working, but you know, it's psychosomatics. There's a very interesting book, Body Mind, Ken Dweitschwald. Um, you know, it gets very psychological. You know, it's like if I'm in a situation that I don't want to be in, but I have to be there, then my legs tense somehow. You know, or if I'm in a situation, if I want to be in another situation and I can't, there's another thing. You know, my legs activate to go. And anyway, this I cut this a bit short. So we have all sorts of memory muscles and conditionings in our body, and when we loosen up our body and get rid of these, then everything starts to flow better, you know, and I start to feel much more authentic, and then I start to wake up. My body mind connection becomes more united, and then my juggling consequently becomes more of an expression of me. You understand? This is ultimately the thing here. It's not just doing something; it's bringing the juggling, coloring the juggling with my expression. You see, so I keep kicking my table. I'm sorry, or wobbly table, whatever. You know, again it wobbles and so one, you know, people say to you, "Open your heart," and it's like, how? How? What do you mean? Open your heart. My heart beats, and it's just doing things with care. This is when doing things with Can we say love? Yeah, we could say we love juggling. So bring this love of juggling more into our work. Yeah, putting more heart into our work, and not following this thing. Because it's also we have to be a bit strategic as well. Strategic is not hard. Strategic is more mental, but we need to be smart and heart, smart heart, smart and heart, hearty smarty, smarty hearty. Anyway, um, let's touch upon this topic now. I'm just gonna have a drink of some of these things might seem a bit obscure. Okay, so bear with me. Again, from Tai Chi and yoga perspective, our mind isn't just our brain. You see, it's deeper. It's the whole connected thing. We could see at a very simple level, it's as if the nervous system was an extension of the brain already, but it it's much more interesting than just this. And so how our brain is has evolved is also very interesting. It's evolved with the reptile brain, which is very reactive, um, instinctive, and then we have the mammal brain, which is more actually the more playful brain, um, the more caring brain, and then we have the human neocortex, which is the thinking brain, and they're not very well connected together actually, these brains. Um, but juggling can help enormously to connect these things together. But in here also, like let's take the left and right hemispheres. We have the doing and the let's say the motor skills, and the feeling part of the brain. So already, if I'm much more connected to how I'm feeling, then my brain is becoming more united. See, and this is how I like to think about going beyond technique, integrating the brain body. Um, so this is why we say there's this big emphasis on feeling how you feel, listening to your body, stopping every now and again, feeling the space that it occupies, and feeling the vibration inside the body. It's like try it a second, just stop and try and be aware of your feet, your toes, the backside, top of the head, ears. You could do the whole body, yeah, and you can feel it. Be aware of what's going on. So it's not like this hairy fairy stuff, oh, we have to feel. It's for a reason, because we are missing this part. We are totally missing this part in our culture. We are not human beings, we are human doings, which isn't a very nice perspective to be a human doing. um, okay, well, thanks for following what I'm saying here. Um, I really don't know if anyone's written any comments here or anything, because I'm not really sure how this thing works. Okay, let's just carry on for a second. Maybe perhaps this is the last thing I'll talk about, which is finding our own style. Okay, this is definitely a way of coming out of mechanical technique. Okay, Um, all of these things, you know, we need to find a middle road, a balance in everything. Okay, we need to look at it and ask questions. And I can become obsessed with finding my original style. Okay, or be depressed that I haven't found it, or frustrated, or but you know, our style, when we start working this way, feeling ourselves, what we like, start creating small sequences, trying to find um, inspirations in art, in poetry, in music, then our, let's say, essence, you know, I don't want to say our personality, you know, our personality is very superficial, basically, you know, we have a deeper essence, which is, you know, you can see, you know, this person really is like this, you know, and because we're multi personalities, you know, is the best parts of our personality. Let's say in this simple way. So originality is working with it, but not to being obsessed by it. You see, it's if it, you are unique, and therefore also your juggling style potentially is unique. You see, because you are unique. I don't know if this is how I've copped out on this explanation a little bit, maybe. Um, so yeah, there's this point here. So and this is connecting the technique to our lives. You know, it's like um, these are heavy questions, you know, but if we work with them, you know, it brings results. Okay, so why is it so difficult to be ourselves? Why why do we have to pretend to be someone else? No, not pretend to be someone else. Why? Um, we put on all sorts of different masks, no, and we don't know who we are. So it's, to be ourselves is what we're interested in here. To go beyond technique, you know? And then even if we go on stage, then we are comfortable, you know, even though there's a huge energy rush, you know. So so yeah, perhaps there's this thing as jugglers, as people, generally, is that I'm not, like I said at the beginning, I'm not judging this as good and bad. It's a tendency that we have, that we always want to do more, we want to do be better, and and but you know, if we if we're not engaged personally with what we're doing, then it becomes robotic. Um, you know, and then in the theatre world, this is a huge thing as well. All of these things could be go much more in detail in all of this stuff. It's how to say something with juggling. Um, I remember many years ago, 15 years ago maybe, I went to the 531 convention. There was Jay Gilligan that gave a talk about storytelling through juggling. Basically, this was the idea, and it was the first time I ever heard anything similar like this. And after that, I heard lots of other different pieces in this. You know, and juggling isn't a very direct um, method of communication. Actually, it's very abstract, similar to dance. Um, so, let's say in theatre, there's a huge emphasis given to what do you want to say. What is your message? And this create for me anyway. This created a lot of difficulty and mental turmoil almost. It's because I didn't know what to do. What do I want to say? What do I want to say? And and I wrote a whole chapter on this, in Pearls, in the juggling and acting section. It's it's crafting it, it's crafting it, working with concepts, developing concepts, developing ideas. Um, it's very hard to say complicated things with juggling, but we can express um, simpler concepts, which doesn't mean that they are less profound or go further. They can touch people very deeply, and this is definitely what is going beyond technique. It's touching people deeply, and this is what I said also in the beginning. So, what is your point of view as a juggler? What is your point of view? Um, and here it becomes very interesting because as jugglers, we're very borderline, let's say, they're, somehow we're slightly out of the mainstream, and at the same time there might be a desire to still be in the mainstream, which is fine, but still, we have a point of view of the world. It's like we see that if you want to learn something, you go for it and you learn it. This is already having something to say, which is a simple concept. Um, yeah, I'd just like to round up perhaps now with something. I think we've been rambling on, talking on long enough now. Um, yeah, so love to hear your thoughts about what we've been talking about here. And if you've made it all this way, then thank you very much for being here. And if you're watching this as a replay, love to read your comments. And yeah, hope to see you somewhere soon. So thank you.